Blessed love and peace. Ta-da! We've got energy. New day, bright day, sunny day. Hallelujah. All thanks and praise the Most High. Baruch Hashem. Alhamdulillah. Jai Om. Shishim Bado Om. We've got energy. Miraculous. What'd that do? That thing called sleep. That thing called body. That thing called nature. That thing called natural. Miraculous. Inexplicable. Journey from the conscious to the unconscious to the conscious to the unconscious to the conscious. Subconscious. Multi-conscious. Super-conscious. Ultra-conscious. Conscientious. All that. So, that being said, we'll say also this, just for the record, this is cutting into quiet time. So, just let that be known. Now, I was trying to articulate some things yesterday. Ain't going to try to articulate all of it at this moment, because, now we're on the schedule. I'm looking at a clock now. It's on this device. We're not online, at least our side of it. We're surveillanced and everything else, but that's from the other side. Oh, maybe a little bit too much energy. Ain't got no coffee since yesterday at least. So this is all natural. Technically, everything's actually all natural, to be honest. The distinction generally in the English parlance is the distinction between things that are natural, things that are man-made. Everything that's man-made is essentially natural, but it's appropriate to recognize that characteristic of intermediariness, intercession, manipulation, all them things. All right, let's get to talk. We're talking about all this energy. Like seriously, I heard the term Ritalin expressed recently. It's a long time since I've heard the pharmaceutical names. Anyways, all right. So talking about the brethren, the dear brethren, Ta-Nehisi Coates. I have yet to meet him. And no shade, but just that this is what precipitates this consideration and trying to articulate some things about that. Wow, how much was I struggling yesterday trying to articulate that. Here we go again, almost. We're talking about solutions. We're focusing on solution, recognizing that kinfolk, without like retracing everything or restating everything that I was talking about yesterday, just like continuing from what I was talking about. So brethren who are in Sistren who are selected by the imperialism to be in that position of spokespeople for an oppressed people have certain tremendous talents and that's not condescending, like genuine God-given talents and abilities, and have cultivated skills, have gone through education and tutelage to like hone these talents to provide it. But at the same time, because buying into the system, and this is not an anti-system thing, it's just talking about the nature of things and the limitation of actually finding viable solutions, particularly in advanced stages of decay in the process of a civilizational cycle. So the brethren who are selected by the imperialism to be spokespeople for an underclassed, underrepresented, quote unquote minority in that democratic mindset. Minority is like a subhuman being, to be honest. So when people self-identify and proclaim oneself as a minority, it's proclaiming oneself as a slave, and to presume some type of empowerment in that process, it's like just so antithetical. Oh, we got all this going on. All right. So the brethren and sistren who are selected. Now I'm going to say brethren specifically because sistren have different skill sets and capabilities than the brethren do. That these statements are less applicable to sistren because sistren can change it up in ways that brethren do not know. So I'm focusing this particularly on brethren who are selected because a lot of sistren are selected, and that's a whole other thing. That's the Moshe Rabbeinu, Egypt. Kill the males and promote the females scenario. So that's a different thing. Right now we're talking about brethren who are selected primarily. and have these intelligence, have a certain knowledge about the world, have a certain empathy, charisma, and charm, or that's not compassion, because there has to be that sense of genuineness for the masses of that constituency to like go along with that and be appeased and kind of like placated by the just the articulations of those selected spokespeople. um, and so there has to be certain genuineness. They have to have some genuine credentials, either coming from a hood, coming from like a nasty background, going through again HBCU. That's the I want to say cliche thing at this moment, but that's some of what it is. The credential of an increasingly believable spokesperson, handpicked, as we say before. Um, so those are certain things that the Brethren Ta-Nehisi Coates and other kinfolk have in terms of like those type of credentials. But at the same time, the kinfolk, their education is within the system, and so the mindset and the presumptions and the objectives, like the benchmarks and the evaluation standards, are based upon what's taught within the system. And the system does not teach genuine liberation; it teaches enslavement and hierarchy and just making one's way up that. So when it comes to when the leadership within the imperialism is like, yo, we need answers, and then going back to the spokespeople saying you're a part of that ilk, you're supposed to have these answers, and doing it in a very subtle and nuanced way, the spokespeople are not going to give those answers, those solutions to the challenges of the system, and additionally because that they've been kinfolk have not been trained for that, have been that insight, that vision, that visionariness has been conditioned away, has been like subdued, has been thwarted, has been redirected, rewired, or whatever else. So they're not kinfolk. The spokespeople are not visionaries. They are, for lack of a better word, this is a little bit crass, but they are regurgitators of what the system has taught. So they're not the visionaries. They're not the ones to say, here's the solution. Here's where it is. Here's the ideas. It's all regurgitation, and it's intellectual, and the compassion makes it seem like that it gives a further aesthetic of the visionary, because people there is a genuine empathy. There is, and it becomes a romanticism of suffering. That's very much part of the liberal kind of like cliche of just like, it seems like they're on the side of the people who are suffering. Everybody's suffering. The liberals are suffering just as much as anybody else is, and conservatives are suffering as just as much as anybody. Ask the Buddha. Ask the widow who's searching for the home that has never experienced the death of a child. So everybody's suffering. But what liberalism does often, and the cliche is when talking about like the minorities, the oppressed populations, doing it doing it in a very compassionate way, being very compassionate to the point of thinking, well, these are like help, these are like allies, these are partners. They want to help uplift, but no, because the liberals are very much committed to the way things are at that moment, continually, just as the conservatives are. The conservatives just don't pretend to give a fuck. Just like, you know what, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Whoa, that doesn't sound too nice. And the liberals say, oh, it's just such a sad situation that you're in. But then it just becomes a circle. So, anyways, we're getting signals now. Maybe this is like the studio, the TV studio, and we're getting the prompts of. All right, progress along. Get to the point further, because we do have things to do. Kind of, sort of, actually. Anyway, that's one thing. We got 3 things to share today. So this is the continuation of yesterday, which is one thing. Then the second thing is what I see when I return back to the hood yesterday evening. And then the third thing is women, marriage, family. Haida, women. Yes, beautiful. Hallelujah. All right, those are the 3 things we got to share and talk about, blah, blah. So continuing on with the first joint. Seriously, have not had. I'm not on any cocaine. Haven't chewed on any coca leaves. Not no caffeine in the past 18 hours. Not a lot of caffeine even just yesterday. All right, focusing. So, all right, the spokesmen are not the visionaries, basically, um, because the spokesmen not only have not been trained or supported to be visionaries, but have been directed away from being visionaries. And so, in that conversation I was talking about with the brethren John Stewart and Ta-Nehisi Coates, um, John Stewart is doing that nuanced, romantic, suffering, empathic kind of thing. But the reason why liberals um, aren't don't actually aren't committed and like at the basic level, everybody deep down inside in the soul and the spirit is looking for solutions. The genuine is looking for truth, is looking for solutions. But in the hardened exterior, um, generally not. So the liberal, when having this facade, this shell of like allyship and solutions, but like the further interior core, not the core, but the interior core of intentions and ambitions and everything else has no intentions of changing the system or anything else like that, because the riches, the comfort, the quote unquote privilege, and everything else is based upon the system. There might be on adjusting and making a little bit. Oh, we got a lot of crumbs here. We could spare some crumbs right now. But in terms of like actually freeing slaves, freeing the oppressed, that would mean that we wouldn't have our security in additionally. So there's not that thing in the interior of the personal construct. But within the heart, within the core, there's always that yearning for truth and genuine solution. And so John Stewart is an example of brethren amongst the liberals. This is why he's so loved amongst the liberals, because he's intelligent, but he still has that empathy, and he has that courage. Who even coming out of retirement, he has that courage to say like, are you one of those spokespeople who still has that visionary seed in them that can like give us that solution, or is that person or that message around you someplace, if we just like give a little of a hint of that we're willing, is it going to happen? So that's what's evident within that questioning, because a lot of it is just it's a lot of it's pandering, a lot of like kind of just like that ego stroking, and like it's actually to be honest, it's a little bit pedestrian, to be honest, because Ta-Nehisi Coates is from what I see, is intelligent. He's actually very balanced, and there's an honesty. Like even though he's conditioned on making a lot of presumptions, but a lot of the presumption is based on a lot of experience of these conditions. So he's intelligent, and he has an honesty that's just distinct. Like it doesn't, from what I observe, he doesn't have that ambition that a lot of kinfolk have. He's a little bit older, it seems, to have that ambition. If he's a colleague of Prince John's of blessed memory, he's a little bit older to have ambitions. Like, when we get this age, we don't have ambitions. We ain't trying to take over the world, because we seen too much, and we just like, okay, what else we got to do here whilst we're still here? So with younger kinfolk in their 30s, the 20s, who are empaths and like selected and are shown as like talents or whatever else, a lot of times those kinfolk have like still like very strong ambitions of doing something big, and it's still a lot of ego that has yet to be revealed. But you could see like, oh, they got something going on, and so they got plans, they got ideas, what they want to try to do. I myself am that in my 20s and 30s, because I still have yet to learn and otherwise. Um, Ta-Nehisi Coates doesn't seem to have that kind of thing. He seems to still be very genuine, and I don't know all the details about his path and what he's doing and everything else like that. But that's part of what seems to be endearing, because there is an increasing genuineness, even though he's still, I mean, just certain things, telltale signs of, like, I won't say duplicity, but just like futility, and the consideration is how much he acknowledges or is aware of that futility, and there is a certain duplicity within that, particularly when one is offering oneself as an intelligentsia. But again, citizenship itself is a telltale sign that that person is if they're talking about civilization, if they're talking about solutions, if they're talking about upliftment, if they're talking about liberation, if they're talking about justice, and still being a citizen of the United States, that's a disconnect right there. So that's an easy, blatant telltale sign that very few in contemporary history are willing to call out, because the implications of that are huge, are like beyond world transformation, like civilizational transformation. But at the same time, it's inevitable. It's going to happen one way or the other. It's going to happen. Like, at some point, the United States is not going to exist. El Hajj Malik al-Shabazz says it himself. And long after the United States is off this earth, we'll still be black people. So there is a consciousness of an existence and a lineage beyond the superpower of the moment. So anyways, but at the same time, the spokespeople leadership, when still being citizens of that superpower, are limiting the ability of solution of this moment, of this day. So that's a telltale sign. And then there's just everything else falls in place. And again, that goes to Brother Umar Johnson as well, and everybody. I mean, that's just it's not me. That's just the facts. So, and it's not hatred. It's just like, okay, yeah, this cat's talking about justice, but wait, he's still like buying into the system. Okay, well, we know how much we can expect, and that's not hate. Just like, yo, all right, we're gonna have to like look someplace else or whatever. And so, and liberals know that too. Conservatives know that. So, all right, that's the what else we got to say about this thing? We're supposed to say something further. So we talk about solution. That's part of the solution. Now that's a big step, and the thing is, just everybody, just like the U.S. is huge. It's huge, and so much is dependent upon the United States being the United States. So the notion of or the solicitation of just the United States being canceled is extremely irresponsible, because that leads itself to, in that vacuum of power, to tremendous chaos and volatility of just like all types of nastiness. So that's recognized, and that's part of the fear. But at the same time, it becomes further and further to that point that it becomes necessary to make preparations for that, because like Joe Biden running for re-election, it's just so obvious. Yo, come on, he don't got it. Let's make preparations. So it's a matter of like, okay, let's keep this as long as possible, and then make the smooth transition or otherwise. It's not just the same thing. It's a symptom, because the decision makers, even the people who are writing the scripts from the caves and the crevices, are struggling for solutions of just keeping order and keeping the facade going. To the point there are these concessions of like, okay, now we can't keep on doing this like we've been doing it. We can't keep on doing this. We can't keep going back to that well. The well is dry now. Yeah, we can't even fake the funk now. So it becomes a point that, okay, we're gonna have to start making preparations. We're gonna have to start being like getting ahead of this thing, as a lot of that parlance is. So who has a knowledge about how things work, who has who's trustworthy, at least to some remote, who's not just like some antagonist and hate this, that, and the other, who has responsibility, who knows how to govern, who knows how to like manage people, guide people, lead people, and otherwise, who's not going to try to like just replace one kind of imperialism with another kind of imperialism, and like there's always going to be imperialism. There's always going to be that predatoriness, and so it's just a matter of like how to like, I was talking about midwifery What I was talking about? Oh yeah, I was talking about bedroom recently about doctors being like midwives. Like, not the point of healing in medicine is not to like try to replace the body and just find all these devices that replace decaying organs or whatever else. The role of the healer and the role of medicine, and it's supposed to be the role of the doctors, is to be essentially a midwife, in the sense that the body heals itself. Just like a pregnant woman, pregnant mother, gives birth herself. The midwife can't do it for her. The obstetrician can't do it for her. The midwife, the obstetrician, gives advice and has knowledge that mother might not have about techniques and this and the other to make it further healthy. So the doctor has knowledge about how the body works and tells the patient, here, this is how to help your body heal itself. It's not a matter of replacing it. It's not a matter of a new technology to get a new body part, and there it is. Now there's a path, there's a trajectory that is continually going in that direction of just replacing the physiology of the body of the humanoids and going the robotic way. That trajectory is increasingly prominent within recent generations amidst the hyper ascension of science, but at the same time, amidst the anticipation of like some fallout from that or in that trajectory, um, and a re-emphasis of natural this and the other, the trajectory is still going to continue in some way or another. So there's always going to be this interest of like replacing actually the human body with just maybe even nothing. As I've said before, like the vision of future is a civilization of humanoids being insects, and even being beyond insects, but just being like vapors in the atmosphere, clouds, actual clouds, of just like energy, light. The technology is so nano, it's so nano, that it's like vapors, and it feeds off the elements. But at the same time, and it's the sentience is like encapsulated in the microscopic. There's going to be a new term beyond microscopic. It's just so tiny. But at the same time, in that tininess, it's like the universe of the armpit. It's just like there's no telling how much sentient life and organisms exist within that finite space, or that seemingly finite space. Um, Now, at the same time, there's humanoids that continue on the Earth, and in like the Cro-Magnon, whatever it's called, uh, Neanderthal. Oh, I can almost say these scientific terms of primitiveness, indeed. Anyway, so meanwhile, at this moment, when looking for solutions of how to guide civilization in this process of evolution from its current stage and build up over the past century or less, there's the necessity of responsibility, and not just handing the reins over to revolutionaries and rebels who don't have that sense of responsibility of actually caring for people and answering for things and being held accountable for indiscretions and everything else like that. So the liberals as well as the conservatives search for people who are visionaries, who are responsible, who are trustworthy and have a vested interest in the well-being of others. And looking at one of the things, it's natural to like, okay, a spokesperson like a Ta-Nehisi Coates, who is intelligent and compassionate, who has a demonstrated ability of knowing about how the system works, and additionally an interest in doing that. Maybe not him necessarily be the leader, but maybe sharing some ideas. But again, kinfolk such as the brethren himself have just not been educated to give those solutions, have been educated away from those solutions, and so that's that's other than that, and he himself says that as well, and he's honest about that. So respect to him. Now, what we'll share is in terms of solutions. I'll say this very briefly. So, and this is not the intention of this is not to say, oh, nobody's the visionary. We're the visionary. I am kind of saying that, but at the same time, you can't say that. But in the meantime, I have to say that. So, as best we can. So, and it's but what we've been saying already. I say, think if there's anything recently or any recent new things to add insight in terms of solutions other than the standard spiel. Nature, what's healing? Recognize what's healing in the environment. Natural water, clean the water, clean the water. The solutions emerge when we live healthy, and that's what it is. Live healthy. Recognize what the needs are. What needs are to be healthy, to live healthy. Not the additives, not the supplements or otherwise. to live not the garden life, the cold garden life, the hot garden life, the mountain garden life, the desert garden life, the oasis garden life, the seacoast garden life, the deep forest garden life, the garden life. That's the solution. To cultivate conditions where people can increasingly proficiently, even autonomously live the garden life, and can pursue the garden life autonomously, independently. Um, so that solution. And the systems, the institutions around that life, around that way of being, organically emerge. Um, so that's that solution, and that's macro as well as micro. It's micro. It's very much micro, but at the same time, it's very much macro as well. And the macro, the big part of the macro part of that is simply stop obstructing it from happening. Remove the obstructions. And that's the responsibility of government at this moment, because government is an obstruction to healthy living. When we look at the food source, when we look at behavior, daily behavior in terms of activity, and additionally, the economic leadership of like companies and employers, and additionally, is guiding people towards unhealthy living, and imposing unhealthy living, being sedentary, working in offices, getting squat, letting organs be unhealthy, slowing the blood flow and circulation, slowing the healthy social interaction, and additionally, the employers are imposing unhealthy conditions and lifestyles upon employees massively. Um, and governments, I mean, factors of production and governments are polluting environments. Well, don't get into this environmental spiel, but are obstructing healthy living with regards to the environment, with nature, not just through the pollution and not just through like the agriculture, GMOs and everything, but by prohibiting people from going into the forest, from going into the park, at least in the United States, and gleaning it, because there's rationale and there's legitimacy within it, certain legitimacy, because if everybody was doing that, the forests and parks would be depleted. They'd be barren. So there's understanding for that. But at the same time, it's necessary. People need that. People need to go into the forest and forage. That. It's in the DNA. It's in our DNA to do that and to feel that connection and to be reminded of where our nutrients come from directly. People need that, and the government is obstructing that. So the government isn't providing. It's not just not providing its service; it's obstructing that service to the society, to the civilians, citizens as residents and otherwise. And that's not just like an alarm for like overthrow or rebellion or revolution. It's just like in a primordial sense, the government is not doing its job. It's not just not doing its job; it's obstructing its job from being done. And so it's naturally going to happen. It's like a dam obstructing the water. You got to let that water flow somehow. That water is going to get there. Now you can try to interfere with the clouds and rain systems and everything else like that, but that seems to be a little bit beyond science's capability at the moment. So in the meanwhile, it's going to rain. That rain is going to pile up, and that dam, that those little water holes or whatever that you've been letting out to let the water flow, that's insufficient at this point. The redirections is insufficient. The levee, well, all right. So the solution is stop obstructing. That's the macro, and to let the micro heal itself. How about that? We're blending now. Let the micro heal itself. And when there are upticks of like aggressions, hostility, violence, intercede in those. But otherwise, revolutionize domestic policies to let the micro heal itself. That's what brethren are talking about when I see recent videos of new suggested videos, whatever. Brethren from UK, it seems, and otherwise Europe, talking about the solution of villages, getting back to the simple, having a meaningful relationship with just a few hundred people, and finding solutions and living as community together in relationship, like the kibbutz style, and that's not intended like the Ummah style, like El Hajj Malik Shabazz describes in his autobiography, the significance, the sacredness of the rug during Hajj. This is the place where we break bread. This is the place where we tell stories. This is the place where we settle disputes. This is the place where we negotiate contracts and treaties. Removing the obstructions to allow the micro to heal itself and be in relationship again. Families, clans, villages. That's the solution. It's not a matter of, again, not trying to take over the world. I think I said that before. It's not trying to save the world. As Brother Ta-Nehisi goes, it's not saving the world. It's not changing the world. Don't even have to be Gandhi at this point. Gandhi technically, to my understanding, didn't say change the world, just said be the change. But still, that mindset of the macro, we don't have to worry about that. Because the macro is too macro. It's the big daddy macro. It's too big. It's untenable. And the endeavor to do that gets enveloped in the tentacles, the imposition of imperialism. Saving the world is as imperialistic as taking over the world, controlling the world, conquering the world. It's the same mechanics. Changing the world is the same imperialism. The liberal, environmental, even human rights. Human rights is a little bit different. LGBTQ, well, that's a whole other thing. Don't have to murky the water with this, but all those idealistic kind of notions of changing the world are just as imperialistic as corporations drawing maps and claiming ownership and territory and everything else. It's exactly, I won't be too hyperbolic, but it's the same imperialism. So it's a matter of letting that go and focusing right now who your relationships are, your family. You don't get along, yo, attend to that. And that takes two, it takes multiple kinfolk in that process, but be honest about that and work on healing it. It's not easy. I know I'm in it myself at this very moment. Reconnecting, recommunicating. In addition, we're so separate from ourselves. We're gonna continue to be global. Everything is by the grace of the Most High, and this is what is shown. There's going to be that continuation of the global. That's continuing, but we have to temper it increasingly. I say we have to, but it is healthy and it is necessary and inevitable to temper that global macro with a meaningful micro, and so that macro is also effectively, organically, optimally meaningful as well. A meaningful micro. How about that? We got so many phrases today. Hallelujah, give thanks and praise to the Most High. So, that's, now you can say that's not very specific. Those solutions, suggestions, it don't need to be. It's right there. And again, it's not a top down telling people what to do solutions. It's a good minute. You gotta speak to them in their heart. You can't just talk at them. They want to learn. It's not just a job. It's a life. This is the future of the world. Does that sound recognizable? The brethren from the classroom. Yo, where is that brethren? All right. So when we talk about solutions, you don't have to have, it doesn't have to be a declaration. You don't have to post it on the door with 95 theses today. People are literate. People are knowledgeable. Children, youth are knowledgeable and literate. Don't know everything, but are working to learn, and still have honesty. Still have that flexibility and mobility and movability to learn and say, oh, okay, yo, you doing the thing. That's nice, okay. So it doesn't have to be all spelled out. Just be honest, and it's natural, yo. It's not clean the water. What you talking about solutions, and you're not talking about cleaning the water? What are you talking about? Make the trees healthy, plants healthy. Let the fruits and the vegetables that grow around people's houses and homes and apartment buildings be edible. Clean the ground and the soil. That's the solution. And you're like, well, that's a huge task. So what? The Marshall Plan is a huge task. COVID is a huge task. And you already see that's the thing. If you don't do it, when you don't do it, so when we don't do it. So get off that, oh, I can't see that happen. No, that doesn't matter what you can see. Maybe you should change your prescription. Your opinion is increasingly and comparatively inconsequential and irrelevant. My opinion is comparatively inconsequential and irrelevant. Get off that ego, and particularly women, sistren, aunties, in these rigidities of masculine ego and presumptions of imperialism, of not having to do anything but just tell others. All right, I'm getting off that, but that's a big thing too. Now, again, there's always going to be imperialism. As I said before, civilization is a continual process of conquest. So that's the nature of it. As long as people continue gathering in these city experiences through the thousands of years, it's a continual process of conquest. Everybody's trying to get over on somebody else. It might be slight and just a little bit of thing, and it might be genuine camaraderie in that process, but still trying to get over on each other. Maybe there's a tacit agreement. Well, 3 generations from now, this is what we're going to try to do. In the meanwhile, we'll settle with everybody else around us. Um, Still conquest. It is what it is. It is what, it's not even difficult to avoid. That's what it is. So, and the alternative is like living in the wilderness, and it's killing. So, it's very understandable for people to opt into the conquest mode, and I can be considered. I personally, we can be considered as part of the conquest situation. There's the transcendent, and that's the part of the nature of the sadhu, the ascetic, the bhikshu, of relinquishing in certain ways that competition and that conquest by letting go of the householder status, and the allegiances and additions that are affiliated with that. But still, the Buddha is still conquering in many ways. So the followers of the Buddha are conquering in many ways. But like I said, that's the nature of it. The consideration is proceeding in a way that is optimally benevolent, optimally empathic, optimally genuine, and all that jazz. So, are we done with this one? Solutions. Um, uh, so who to go to for solutions? Like we just shared it right here already. So other than that, go into each other's selves. I mean, there's so many YouTubers I'm seeing now, and maybe this is where the algorithm is directing our attention or whatever. But we're seeing all these essentially middle-aged brethren, and middle age can go from maybe 30s, 40s, all the way up to maybe 50s. I'm still middle-aged, am I? I'm not older. I'm not a senior citizen yet. I'm 50. 50 is the new 20, with maybe 20 to go. By the grace of the Most High, everything. There's no guarantee. So, um, what I'm seeing in the feeds when I go online once a week is all these middle-agers, Gooby and Doobie. I saw another brother who works for a physical therapist assistant, talking about his experience dealing with people who are going into elderly care, and additionally have to let go of all the things that they spent their lives accumulating: houses, boats, riches, and now they don't have a lot of loved ones, don't have a lot of relatives. Some do, some don't. And then like grappling with that prospect of having to let these things go because they can't hold on to them. They have to go to the care or whatever, and so it's like psychic pain and existential, like not travesty, but like angst and affliction, because the things that people just guided their attention to and devoted themselves to acquiring, like now they're gonna have, in the sense of self that got gleaned from it, not have to let it go. So anyways, my point here is that maybe even these vlogs, how about that? But there's again, like I said, I just saw this other brother, don't know his name either, just yesterday, doing a blog about speaking from a European perspective, has I think a British accent, but was in Norway. Talking about being in the Arctic Circle when he was filming the vlog on the seashore, amidst the seagulls, and talking about solution, looking for a solution, and talking about global conditions, and talking about the micro, emphasizing the village experience. And again, so we're getting a lot of these feeds from brethren, men, middle-aged men who are vlogging. The algorithm is trying to set us up, trying to fix us up or whatever. That's some of that suspect, self-deprecating humor that is less applicable at this point, because we done been too maligned and devalued already. So we too old to be like putting ourselves down like that. So because when we do, it's not just us we put down, so we gotta be mindful of that. So we don't have the play stuff, the propensities that we do before. There's still, it's proper play at this point. Marriage, concentration, productivity, be fruitful and multiply. Does any of that make sense? Beauty. Continuing on. We'll go into the second thing, I guess, if I recall it. And it's already an hour, almost an hour into this, right? Almost a Dougie Fresh imitation right there, inadvertently. Not anywhere close, to be honest. Second joint. What's the second joint? I said it before. I didn't come through the door particularly. However, that would be Eric B. and Rakim. I've already done that recently. And that is not Fred Flintstone. Let's focus on the second joint. I feel like Robin Williams almost. Beat about. Second joint. Oh, my day yesterday, right, coming into the town. All right, so I was out of town, in a quiet place, further natural, and even just for a couple of days. And it wasn't a vacation or whatever. There's things to do, things that are done. Anyways, returning back here and doing that, got back yesterday evening, early evening. It was just after sunset or whatever. So stopped in an eatery, a pub thing or whatever, and I'm gonna like try to focus on just what I saw and let that speak for itself. But I'm gonna have that tendency of like giving further description and explanation, whatever else. What I will the way a context to set the scene and this narrative is just to describe the communication today about this experience, which is this. It is returning to hell in the company of angels. All right. So, Kinfolk and I go to an eatery. It is just like off in the cut in the city, a certain ethnic experience, pub situation with food. We got some food. And what I see in that place is an insignia worn on the head of a trophy of the head of another tribe, mocking that other tribe, showing the conquest, the conquering of that other tribe, claiming that other tribe as being dead and conquered. And so here's the trophy. It's the head of that conquered tribe. And that's what I see in the eatery, amidst this friendly brethren, smiley faces, sistering, and additionally, see the head of a tribe, a trophy, a mockery, a denigration of that tribe, the insignia. We conquered, this tribe. This tribe is dead, and here's our trophy, likely antlers and otherwise. So that's what I see in the close confines of like if you think about like Irish pub, a British pub, that old wood, the music, people getting off work and shaking it off, drinking the spirits, and just forgetting about the warfare from the day's work, and reveling in the trophies of the dead bodies, men, women, and children. This is what we have to show for what we did today. That's what we see. Continuing on, I get into the subway, the underground railroad of the city. It's a very interesting energy. Now in the Cuyahoga area, we don't have a lot of the subway thing. We don't have a lot of rail transit, public transit. Generally, it's called the Rapid, RTA Rapid. Most of it is above ground. Some of it goes underground, particularly amidst the city center. And so that's where I'm going. I get into the station, and the particular stop that I get into, as many of them are, it's a matter of walking down steps. And then, even if it's an open air joint with a platform and the rails on either side going in either direction, and people waiting in the middle with a bench. So that's what I arrive. And again, it's early evening, maybe around 7 p.m. It's dark. It's already dark. There's no sign of the soleil other than the moon reflecting after the new moon, smiling. The new moon is smiling. Grandma moon is smiling. That's the most immediate, explicit evidence of the soleil at that moment. So it's dark, but it's still early, and the platform is packed. There's a lot of people there, getting off work, whatever else. It's early evening, so but it's comparatively quiet. Like it's just like a solemn, somber kind of energy, usual kind of casual energy. And it's most of the kinfolk there are African ancestry. There are a few kinfolk of European ancestry. Now, one of the things I notice immediately as I get down to the steps onto that platform itself, concrete, open air. One of the first things I see is amongst the most majority of African dark brethren, sister, and bodies on the platform waiting for the trains, either direction. There's a young, there's a brethren of European ancestry, light skin, sitting on the platform with legs dangling over where the trains arrive. That's a bad sign. Now he didn't seem like he was threatening, or he was just sitting there casually, and it wasn't. Many people were standing. There were some vacant chairs or whatever, so it wasn't like there was a need for a lack of seating. But I mean, some people, particularly when people are young, try to be like show how hard or courageous or whatever. He didn't seem to have the air. He's a little bit older, maybe in his 30s or 40s, and just sitting there casually. It's not unheard of, but it's not usual. And so I approach, and my interest is the brethren. Like, my intention is like say, hey, baby, but not to be a, I get off that, but just like, yo, can we like get away from there? Because I don't feel comfortable with you sitting like that, because I'm concerned. And there ain't no trains there at the moment, but still, like, no, like that the actual rule of the city or whatever is like, yo, there's a line, and not to stand on that border of that line, on the platform as a general rule. So to sit there, if there was a security guard or whatever, that would be like, oh, yo, get all of this. But me, I'm just coming there, and again, my interest is the brethren being safe and well, and like being off that. But you can't talk to brethren any kind of way with any certain expedition. You got to be diplomatic and respectful and everything else. So that's my mindset as I'm approaching, as I'm seeing it. And I'm being casual, because and the thing is, what I'm seeing is I'm speaking in terms of interpretation and translation rather than just what I see. That is what I see. But at the same time, what I see is, again, with the black faces around, there being like nobody else said anything, or nobody else would seem to be concerned. So And what I hear and what I see from that, again, nobody's saying anything. There's no signs, but this is what I see based on my experience. What I see is that black folk being like, we don't care about that, brethren. And it's not that callous, but it is that basic of like, he want to do that. Yo, he's his own man. He's grown. He's not my child. I ain't got to worry about that, brethren. And that's part of what that brethren experiences. He's been cast off in whatever different directions from his own clan. So the fact that he's just in the company of other Africans is evidence of that. And even in being in the company, he's still being cast off all the way onto the ledge. It may be his own immediate volition, but at the same time, that's the energy, and that's the vibration of the environment, because nobody's around him like, yo, come on, Brian, get off that ledge. Nobody's sitting on the ledge with him like, well, if you're gonna do that, I'm gonna do it too. So if you're gonna, I'm gonna be here with you. Nobody was being that thing as I'm walking up. Somebody could have spoken to him before I got there, but the fact is, he was sitting there when I arrived. So my natural, not even thinking about it, I just start to walk up to the brethren with the intention like, yo, brethren, could you please just say it somehow or another? But I got to see where his mind's at. I don't know if he's high. I don't know if he's looking at a young person. My eyesight is blurry from the distance. I was watching a football match a few weeks ago, and I could see, like, wow, I cannot see. Anyway. So as I'm approaching, he naturally gets up himself. I don't say anything. I just slowly approach, and as I do, I'm like, okay, and I feel that like responsiveness, and he's looking directly at me as I'm approaching. He gets up, and so I continue to approach him, and by that time he starts to turn and walk towards me as well. So then he looks at me and he starts to ask me a couple questions, and he's looking at my shirt and he's asking me like maybe where I'm from, whatever, and I say I'm the earth. I love everybody, and so I could see, like, again, he's in his 30s, 40s, beard, slight build, but he's calm. He doesn't seem to be like like way inebriated or whatever else, one way or the other. But at the same time, he might be homeless. It might be something or other. He's on something. He's doing something. Something is going on in his life. But at the same time, he's coherent. And I know enough in my experience of walking in this life and in the streets, and additionally, like, I can see there's that honesty and that relatability and that, like, light versus not light versus light seeing light. So he's connecting with me in that respect. I can see that he can see me in a proficient way that many others are unwilling to do. So I'm speaking to him in that vibration. So I'm emphatic. I love everybody. That's my clique. My ancestors are from many different lands. I am the earth. And then so he says something about actually one of the first things he does, I say peace and blessings to him as I'm approaching, and in response he does the cross insignia, and so I say, okay, I'm seeing what his language is. And so as he's asking me about the sign, that's when I say I'm earth. I love everybody. Da, 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 da. But at the same time, I have in my back of my mind, I know I have an idea of what to share with him, to help in the energy field. So after I see the insignia, so again he's asking me, and he's calm. I can see the gentleness in his spirit, and he's just like, he's not accusatory. I don't feel that vibration. It's just like, what is this? Well, who is this person? Who's this being? Because that's the experience on the streets. We deal with beings and further. So that's how he's looking at me, and so I'm doing my best to assure him what I understand myself as, and share with that accordingly. I love everybody. And so when he seems to that seems to register, there's a calmness. There's not a hurriedness about saying anything on his side or on my side either. We're just like, okay, it's kind of like two animals finding, like, two species of animals encountering each other first occasion. Like, so what are you? And this and that. Do you eat my kind, or whatever else? So, but I don't see that. So, anyways, now, like I said before, I had in mind, once I saw him to the insignia, as we were having this discussion and exchange and answering his questions, I have in mind something to share with him, while in that window. And what I share with him is, DBW, Deus nos there. After seeing the insignia of the cross, I say, okay, I'll recite the Lord's Prayer in Latin. So that's what I do. And so as I do that, I don't know if he's going to recognize what that is, if he's heard it before, or otherwise. But I have a if he's doing this, it's particularly that's rather Catholic. So there's some type of literacy and familiarity. So that's what I do. I say Deus noster qui es in celis, and I continue on. And he just like looks at me and is like, doesn't say anything, doesn't try to respond to it immediately, and I'm just gonna like see how long I can like recite this whilst it's still receptive. And so I get through, I think either all of it or nearly all of it, and I can hear the train coming at that point. His train is he's going in the other direction, so I can hear the train coming at that point, and he kind of just looks at me. First he says Greek Catholic, and I'm affirming that he's in the ballpark. So I just say, you got it. And he's like Roman Catholic. I'm like, yeah. And so he's kind of just like that registers, and he's like, this is my train. Like, okay, peace and blessings, and that's it. So now from that, I think to myself that now a lot of people get onto that train, so there's further space and it's quieter. There's still everybody going onto the other train. So um, I'm I walk further off the platform just to be a little bit distant from what's going on, whatever, because I'm singing and I don't want to put that on everybody else. And so this is my headspace. I can feel already, like I said, like it's night. I'm getting back into the city, and I'm feeling that re-entry into hell and in the company of angels. So um, I'm feeling positive. I felt like that positive vibration from that interaction. I'm going to be singing. Don't You can't be too positive on the streets because who that? Oh, he looked very happy. He must have something. So you can't be too happy. Can't be too cheery or whatever. So sing. Already singing is suspect. So be mindful of that. Keep a distance or whatever else. And I'm thinking that I'm like, I got that thought in my head at that moment about change, saving the world, changing the world, taking over the world. And I'm like, all right, let's get a heat check on this idea, whatever, and let's talk to some brethren. There are two brethren sitting next on a bench nearby of African ancestry, dark skinned kinfolk, and okay, maybe late teens, early 20s, thereabouts. All right, let's see what the vibration is on this idea. So I they're sitting down on the bench. So I squat. So I'm eye level. So I'm not talking down, and I just get into the squat. So now we're at eye level generally speaking. And so I just say, yo, Brandon, can I ask you all a question? And I'm like, okay. And I just want to get your opinion on something. So, and again, I fumble in articulating it, but I basically articulate the gist about like how even changing the world and saving the world is like trying to take over the world, and how like the solution is like working right where we're at immediately, this and the other, and seeing how that hits. And they're like, no, that's it, that's what's up, pound up, all right, cool. Our train arrives, so I get on the train first, and I sit in the selection. There's a lot of open seats, and so I try to find a seat where, because they seemed that they were responsive, pounded up immediately. And so I'm like, okay, the train came. Okay, if you want to keep on talking about this, I didn't have a lot in terms of speed. I was tired. I mean, I'm in transit, whatever. So, but if we got a window, brethren are receptive. There's positivity, so I'll try to like make myself available if there's willingness. So I sat down. And the brethren might have gauged like my energy level, whatever, and like, well, let it be. And they kept up on walking to the further side of the train. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I just sit there by myself, and I'm still in my song mode. So I just sing quietly, and the rapid situation is different than the bus situation for a number of different reasons. Won't get into it already because we're already into this for an hour. So I continue singing my songs, and soon after, on the train, the brethren are like, all right, brethren, all right, all right. I didn't see them. They're behind me, but they're letting me know they're getting off the train, whatever. And they just like, yo, all right, peace. So all right, hey, y'all, peace, blessings to y'all. God bless y'all. And then so that's it. All right, so cool. Yo, love, man, you love. Even though my brothers do me just like that, we got a lot of love, so we're giving it back. So that's what it is. All right. Um, Returning into hell in the company of angels. Now, right after that stop, it's hectic. And again, the energy of the Underground Railroad in the city is something else. I remember experiencing that when I'm in the Potomac area. And the Potomac don't have the big underground system per se, too tough. It does, but the metro, but it's not like a New York or maybe even like a Chicago, even though the Chicago is the L. I'm thinking also like particularly Europe has the big metro underground joints, the tube in such. Anyways, just a few stops like there was a lot of animation getting onto the bus. Particularly, there's a cistern. I'm being mindful of how much I like blow up the spot, but like the spot is what the spot is, and I'll just articulate this. So, cistern gets on the bus now on the train, and it again is dark, and it's been a minute. I mean, traveled this line for years. It used to be a regular thing, so I know I'm familiar with it, and it's not that big of a line in terms of how many stops or whatever. But at the same time, it goes through some hood spots, and cats can get on from immediately rather hood environments. So there's no telling what's going to happen, and anyway, so at one point, kinfolk get on, and kinfolk are animated. It's a cistern who might be about my age, and she's with some younger folk, some children. It's a youth, and animated. And you can't just say just because somebody's animated, just can't you can't make like snap decisions. But they gotta look into what's going on because sometimes kinfolk can be loud, but they're loud because they're being defensive and they're being proactive, um, and sometimes cats are loud and they're trying people and they're being aggressive. You have to read what's going on, and just because somebody's loud doesn't mean they're trying to get at people. But you have to like be mindful. You have to be that. You have to experience that and be knowledgeable. So that's part of it. So when kinfolk are loud, and it could easily snap from being congenial to being like, oh no, boom, all types of aggressive and like all out aggressive. So it's all different types of things. So just be mindful, whatever. So Auntie's getting on. She got children with her, youth, and animated volume. And the scene was quiet. I was vibing with the song or whatever. I'm in my zone, and everybody else seemed to be like chilling out or whatever. So animated. All of a sudden, I'm like, ooh, okay, here energy change right now. And it's dark. It's night, early night, but it's still like, yo, okay. And one of the things about the train also is that one can lose sight of what stop we're at and what street, what neighborhood we're at, or whatever, and who's getting on from that neighborhood. So, um, particularly the red line. Um, Actually, the green line goes through the same thing at this point as well. So, being in the zone or whatever, it's different from the bus. When one is on the bus, one can feel where we are and always be anticipating. And there's only one entrance onto the bus. Everybody gets on, generally speaking, at the same entrance, and so you can see who's coming on, and it's one by one. And additionally, on the train, you can get lose sight of where you are, what neighborhood, and additionally, and entrances from all the different side, front, side, back, and cats can just get on. And it's like it's a different vibe, particularly at night, and particularly when it's been a minute since somebody's been in it. So that's what I'm experiencing. I'm like feeling this, like again, this dive into the conditions. And so when the kinfolk get on, the energy changes, and it's like, okay, um, what's going on? Reading what's going on. Now I just said there's the auntie with the children. There are other people who got on as well. So I don't know if all the volume was coming just from kinfolk here or from otherwise or otherwise. So anyways, generally speaking, the rapid is comparatively benign. Um, Compared to the bus, to be honest. Also, there are also armed guards that tend to get on the bus. I mean, onto the rapid, um, particularly because it's the main joint to the airport as well. So there's a high interest of making it feel safe for commuters, particularly middle class and otherwise, who want to travel that. But anyways, there's nuances with that. Anyways, but without getting into all that, just finish up this joint. So there's animation volume, and then the kinfolk sit down, and it goes on. And the auntie is voluminous. She's got a lot of responsibility that she's carrying with her as well. She's in the element, so she's got to be that bear. She's got to be that mama bear, and keep those knucklehead male bears away from like doing things. So She's got to like be proactive in like caring. So she might seem belligerent or otherwise by being voluminous as well. But like I said, a lot of it is simply defense and proactive defense mechanisms. So, but it can be easy to respond to that too, and even just in responding legitimately or having a legitimate like concern and then responding to those proactive defenses can flip that switch from the proactive defenses turning into aggressions. And so again, this like street diplomacy. So I'm just in this on the song zone. I don't stop the song. I don't lower the song. I might up the volume a little bit. Again, I do the matching. So it was low before because it was very quiet before, and I'm not trying to impose it. But this is a vibration that there's a continuity. So I'm going from song to song. I'm trying to be attentive, like DJ style, trying to share songs that are increasingly immutable. Sometimes I don't go in DJ style. Sometimes I'm in the zone because this is what the conditions are, and I'm just gonna do the Gayatri mantra. I'm just gonna do Shalom Aleichem. I'm just gonna do Allah Wabha or whatever else. At the moment, there's diplomacy. I can do songs in English, and I can do from the repertoire that I know it further hits with kinfolk, generally speaking. So that's the zone, and that I'm in at that moment, mellow, um, and I raise it up a little bit when I hear the volume. Just again, matching levels. Now, at some point, the one of the young brethren, the children, the youth, maybe about 14, 15 years old. I can hear this sister auntie talking with others about special needs children, this and the other. One of the brethren seemed to be like 13, 14 years old. Um, he goes up and sits right next to me in the seat next to me, kind of just looking at me. Now I'm looking forward. The seats are facing backwards, and so he looks right at me. I can like feel that he's looking right at me, but I'm not going to be. I'm being mindful of how much I interact or otherwise, and not trying to be too eyebally. So um, at one point, he actually says, "Yo, you sing beautiful." So I look at him and I say, "Appreciate it, brethren," and peace and blessings to him. And I say, "All thanks and praise the Most High." And I keep it like that because I'm focusing on what I'm doing at that moment. And so no disrespect, but and not trying to be like unattentive or whatever, but I know he's in the care of someone else at the moment, so he's not in need of like attention or whatever in that respect, in terms of like safety or whatever. And so I'm continuing on the service, and just okay, enjoy it. Here we go. Continue going, go and do it. So that's what we do. Now, eventually, like he goes back and sits with the auntie, and when I get to my stop, then I speak to the auntie directly, say peace and blessings to her. She responds and likewise, and the youth do as well, and then I continue on my way. Peace and blessings to the kinfolk who are waiting on the platform as I arrive, and other brethren and sisterin walking out. And as I got onto the street level, it is in the stop is in a place where there is, like I said, some established. I don't want to say hostilities or established hostilities, but there's some static, and so I'm on a protocol at the moment of whenever I'm in that vicinity, I'm singing a song comparatively voluminous, um, because of the static directly towards ourselves. That's where the stop is. So, but my path that night is in the other direction than the main part of the city part or the village part where there's the activity or whatever. So I already discern, okay, I'm not going to get into the song mode today because I'm going in a different direction at the moment. Now, as I'm exiting the stop, there's a sister who I know for years, um, through just happenstance of being in the village, seeing each other through whatever. She's walking as I approach, and so then um, we greet each other and have a discussion and talk about a mutual sister of who we know, who I meet recently. Um, and so it's positive, it's light, as the conversations all through the years. Um, and then she continues on her way, and I continue on my way, um, and complete what I have for that evening. I make an audible and just like, yo, it's time to, it's beneficial for me to call it a day and get back and rejuvenate. So that's what I see. That's what I be. That's what I. Hey, yo, that's a song right there. That's what I see. That's what I be. That's what I. Hey. Yo, we gonna test this one. Oh, we got one. Oh, all thanks and praise. All thanks and praise. All right. So I kind of like that one. See how that hits. All right. Third thing we got to share. Women, beautiful, beautiful sister. Marriage. I talking before about not a woman, not just not being racist, or not just being um, discriminating, meaning not just being discriminating. Discriminating is actually beneficial. So what we're trying to say, not just being istist, um, and not just her parents being ist either, but being knowledgeable, literate in the culture of a man. So that, and if and when not being literate, being willing to learn, having the flexibility. Uh, Talking before with Uncle yesterday about a young sister and being shy, and how that is an attractive feature within a woman. For her not to be, I mean, every woman has different personalities, and there's beauty within every different type of personality. Actually, yes. Um, but particularly for men who are masculine, for men who are emasculated and still masculine, there's a very strong appreciation for sistren as a marital prospect, for sistren to be shy, and somewhat reserved, um, but the basic shy, as opposed to, or in contradiction or in contrast to being conquering, of trying to be boss and tell somebody what to do. Now, for a woman to be shy, it takes a man to be further proactive, further protective, and further assertive. And a lot of men are trained, just like women are trained and conditioned. A lot of men are trained and conditioned to be submissive, to be very docile, to be very subjugated, asking questions, being looking for a mama, basically. And I'm very much a candidate for that type of accusation. Um, in many ways, it's applicable. In many ways, it's not applicable, because what many people are perceiving as like whippedness, being whipped, or being a mama's boy, or being effeminate, or being sedity, or being emasculated, what people are actually looking at is piety, and not recognizing that. And just like looking at things with a predatory lens, and then just making those conclusions accordingly. And so, like, oh, we need to tell him what to do because he's just too da. No, hold on, no. He knows what he's doing. Everybody knows what they're doing. Everybody forgets occasionally. Everybody needs reminding sometimes, but like, don't be too presumptuous. And that's what a lot of kinfolk with myself. First of all, I give this jokey, um, um, lighthearted kind of expression, and people, it can distract people from recognizing I'm actually a boss. Um, so I have to be mindful of that, and I lure people into that by doing this. So I can't get too mad when people work on that presumption of not being a boss. So, anyways, that's one thing. The other thing is, with the women's is, um, just because a man is soft spoken, just because a man is not like um, trying to take over the conversation or whatever else, or being big Willie style or whatever, doesn't mean that man is soft. Doesn't mean that man isn't masculine. Doesn't mean that man isn't assertive and like a man. Um, Piety, living by certain protocols and rules. So, anyways, well, I'm starting to get pains of hunger. I haven't eaten in a while. All right. Point. There's a further point here. All right. So, anyways, now that being said, there are a lot of men who are looking for a mother, looking for a woman to like just take care of him, looking for a wife to be his mother, and take care of him. And that's extremely unfair to expect. But that's how a lot of men are trained and conditioned by society and by mothers. And it's how a lot of women are conditioned to be that mother wife, that mother with benefits. Oedipus all day. No. But that's how people are. That's how women are trained to say, oh, here's the boy, here's a man boy who isn't strong enough to like make decisions on his own, and that woman's going to have to take some take the reins and take control and be the responsible one, handle the money, drive the car, and everything else like that. And the boy, as long as he's a decent boy, and is able to like keep some kind of connections whereby the family gets an income and salary, then that makes it worthwhile for the woman to take on that burden of being the wife and the mother to the man boy. That's a lot. That's a very prevalent trope within society. So, but at the same time, it's not. It's not. There are other tropes that can seem like that, but it's not that. So, anyways, there's a message for both men and women in that. All that being said, what I'm saying right now is this. It's about the shyness of a woman, the reservedness, and again the coyness and the, I won't say submissive, but just like the reservedness, the modesty. The modesty was what we're going for. So now, that being said, here's what we got to share. What we observe is that there are four basic types of women that we encounter in public domain. One woman who communicates just by her appearance, how she presents herself. This is all based upon her presentation of herself. One type of woman is the woman who communicates that she is unavailable, and this is in the context of a man looking for a wife, looking for a relationship with a woman. There's one category of women who communicates just by how she presents herself that she is unavailable. Blah. She's an elder, so she's not in that field in terms of like being in a marriage, having children, and additionally, she's too young. She's a girl, so she's unavailable. She's married. Either she has a ring. She's dressed in a very conservative way. So that tells she's unavailable. She's walking with a man holding hands. She's unavailable. Very plain presentation, communication, very explicit communication. That's one category. Second category is a woman who communicates a readiness to have sex. Plain and simple. When a woman, all right, so how do you dress? When a woman dresses in a way that shows her sexual prowess, as I've described before, one, she has a knowledge about sex. She is as coy as or whatever else as she may feign to be. Every woman has a knowledge about sex. Every woman has a knowledge about sex. That's by nature. Menstruation is that, at the very least, that introduction to sex, to the knowledge of sex. It doesn't have to be like complete everything known, but there's a knowledge. So with every woman having a knowledge about sex, each woman has a knowledge about her sexual prowess, particularly when she becomes developed. Bloop bloop, we got the root root going on right now. So every woman has a knowledge about sex, and every woman has some knowledge about her sexual prowess. And when a woman dresses in a way that displays her sexual prowess, showing her cleavage, showing the shape of her bosoms, showing her shoulder, her bra strap, showing her thighs, showing her midriff, even showing her hair. The face of a woman is the senses. So, but particularly the sexual bodily prowess, when a woman is presenting that, displaying that by how she dresses and how she presents herself in public, She has a knowledge about sex. She has a knowledge about her sexual prowess. And because of that, and when she presents herself that way in public, she is communicating her readiness to have sex. The question is if the price is right. That's it. Facts, facts, facts. That price does not necessarily have to be money. That price may be access to elitism. That price might be admission to a university, or a job hire, or a contract, or a drink, or whatever else. That's what she's saying. She is ready to have sex. Question is, the price is right. That's, I'm not going to cuss on this one, but that's 100% facts. So, not necessarily with everybody, because the price might be extremely high for certain kind. It doesn't mean it's the same price for everybody. For one dude, it might be a smile. For another dude, it might be $10 billion or something else. The price is not necessarily the same, but the question is the price right? But she's ready to have sex. It doesn't mean that a man can just walk up and say anything he wants and do anything he wants, right? None of that. But she is communicating that she is ready to have sex. Plain and simple. All right, I gotta get off that. That's second category. Third category is when a woman communicates that she is ready to have a baby. Not saying she's pregnant at that moment. She is ready to conceive a child. So what I'm talking about with that? I'm talking about she's not on the pill. She is in the process of ovulating. She is not, it doesn't have to say ovulating. My knowledge about that is very modest, but she is naturally ready. She's young, she's virile, she's wanting a child, and she's ready to have a child. She's ready to conceive a child. How can you tell? I'm just telling you, we can tell. So that's the third category. And that's significantly vibes. That's significantly vibration. I've talked about this before, about the radar and how the radar is cultivated. A man's radar towards a woman's radar towards a man. Because a woman can see the same thing in a man. How much he's backed up, how much seed he has. And additionally, so that's what we're talking about. That type of primordial, animalistic, just like, in heat kind of situation. I guess that's what we're talking about. Being in heat, that's plain and simple what I'm talking about. It's as simple as that. Tell when a woman is in heat. She's ready. Not just that she's ready to have sex, but she's ready to have a baby. Because a lot of women are ready to have sex and not ready to have a baby because they're on the pill. They're sterile. They know that in having sex, they're not going to have a child. They're not going to conceive at that moment. And so the sex is for purposes other than procreation. So there's a difference between a woman ready to have sex and a woman ready to have a baby. She's natural. She's ready to have a baby at that moment in heat and not just horny. So I guess there's a difference between those terms at this point. Anyways, that's the third category. She's ready to have a baby. She's ready to make a baby. I'll say that. Ready to make a baby. The fourth category is she is ready to be married. How can you tell? It's tough. And it might be just slightly ready. She's slightly ready to talk about that, maybe. But it's a scary thing, and it's a vulnerable thing, and it's a sacred thing for a man to be trusted with that conversation. So those are the four categories. And a woman does present herself in a certain way, because a woman who's ready to be married tends to be further intentional. A woman could be ready to have sex, ready to have a baby, and ready to be married all at the same time, depending upon conditioning and teaching and everything else like that, depending upon levels of intoxication and conditions in life, and additionally so. But there are some distinctions and telltale signs, and additionally, how do you tell if a woman's being ready to marry? it's the concentration. And I'm thinking about this as I'm saying it. I know it's a thing. I'm trying to think of how to, like, what are telltale signs that are accurate and applicable in a general categorical way. I think it's simply just the concentration of it's the concentration in communication. Maybe that's simply it. It's how much a woman is engaged in having a conversation with a man. So that if she is shy and coy and has been like looking away for a while and a while and a while, and eventually one day she just kind of looks at him and is like receptive to him speaking with her. That could be that concentration of communication. It could be her going up to a man and just having a conversation and asking about him, and additionally, and just being very focused towards him, not being distracted, not being over the top, but just being concentrated. A lot of it is a matter of a woman communicating an interest in a man and encouraging the man to invite her to share that proposition. And it's part of the dance, and it's tenacious, and there's all types of clumsiness, and I speak from tremendous experience. But that's some of the telltale signs. The concentration of communication. She's not like easily distracted. Oh, who is that? Oh, there was such and such. She's not talking about other dudes. She's giving attention to the man. She's maintaining eye contact. She's not being too like suggestive in terms of like to be interpreted as like a sexual advance, but she lets be known that she's interested and committed in being in his company. So, and eye contact, it's not a stare down, because actually that's a way of telling like a brethren who is passing as a woman. That's one thing I've experienced. When in this day and age of the transgender situation and everything, like one thing that is observed of a brethren who is presenting as a woman and who is extremely convincing, maybe very young, um, very shapely in terms of like a woman's figure, has all the maybe expensive surgeries and procedures or whatever else, personal training in terms of diet and exercise and everything else to optimize that appearance of a woman's shape. The hair, everything is like, in a very subtle, feminine way, but it's a dude. It's a man. That being is born with testicles and a penis and knows that. But even with all the mannerisms and everything, one thing is observed, and this is just one thing that's observed, and it's not all the time. This is not a telltale sign, or I should say, it's not always that obvious. But one thing that I do observe is that one thing men do when presenting as women, when talking with another man, and trying to continue that kind of facade, is control through the eyes, of trying to like control a man and convince a man and engage a man through the strength of the eyes. And that's something that's a very masculine thing. It's a predatory type of thing, of trying to control and guide somebody else's thoughts and concentration, whatever else, through direct eye contact. Again, like that stare down type of thing. It's a masculine thing. Women can do it, and particularly aggressive women have that propensity of doing that. But I noticed that being something amongst very male, like presenting female situation type brethren, that eye thing of just like. So, anyways, what I'm talking about in terms of a woman communicating her interest in a man, it's not trying to control him through the eyes. It is letting him know that he has her attention, and concentrating and being focused, not being distracted by somebody else who walks in the room, or whatever else. It's staying focused, listening to him, responding to him. It might be jokey, she might be laughing the whole time, smiling, giggly, or she just might be very quiet, one way or the other. I'm not trying to present in that way. What up? Look what I'm doing. But she lets him know through her attention, her concentrated communication, her readiness of marriage. Now, obviously, there's a lot of conversation to develop in that respect, and her explicit articulation may be minutes, maybe hours, maybe days, maybe months down the road, but it's for the man to respond accordingly um, when receiving that communication. And sometimes there's further like hints and suggestions that are helpful in that process. But anyways, that's one of the things we share, and that's what we got to do at this moment. An hour and a half later, we were supposed to be bounced by this point, but it is what it is for the reason. Be interesting to think to learn about the specific steps and processes that bring His Majesty Haile Selassie I and Her Majesty Wazir together. There are a lot of, when reading the autobiography, there are a lot of conditions at that moment that are going on. There's a lot of things concerning the crown and exterior conditions that are involved in the actual arrangement of marriage between His Majesty Haile Selassie I and Her Majesty Wazir. But all that being said and all that being done, what His Majesty Haile Selassie I communicates in his autobiography is a very strong affirmation of mutual interest, and there being little doubt once the arrangement is imminent or like mutually articulated. So, and then from that, once that interest is communicated and once the arrangement is confirmed, unquestioned, this is what it is, and here we go. This is life, and so it's actually very encouraging to learn that from His Majesty Haile Selassie I. That type of stoicism, that type of loyalty and fidelity of like we're not gonna be talking about my wife. That's no. And by that I'm just talking about like don't question. There's no questioning the integrity of the relationship. That's not your purview. Yo, you getting out your lane. That's my house right there. And that's not you're not in this bond to be speaking of voice or otherwise. And so, and again, His Majesty Haile Selassie, at least within the autobiography, his autobiography doesn't bemoan the thing. It just very plainly, specifically, candidly articulated, and then there's the description of the marriage itself, and further. So, that's old school. It's in a culture where there's less of that normalization of women presenting as being ready to have sex or even ready to have babies outside of marriage. So it is old school where there is an increasing norm of arranged marriage and that type of expectation and intentionality. So it's beneficial to have a reminder of that, and to consider how to cultivate that healthy process, that process of healthy relationship amidst today's conditions and amidst today's genuine concerns, genuine fears and insecurities, the betrayals, the predatoriness, the genuine protections that kinfolk have towards being preyed upon and betrayed. And so there's reasons for the game being the way the game is, the reasons for why people do the tactics that people do. um, and just abruptly introducing like a healthy old school way of doing things might just seem like another game of control and conquest and everything else like that, because there's an element of that, but it's mutuality and it's respect and it's supported through relationship of families and ancestors and culture and heritage and community. um, but just to like, it's like, one way of describing it is like people talk about when kinfolk are alcoholics. Some kinfolk, like if they go cold turkey, yo, that could be a shock to the body. Now that's what people are told. That's what many doctors articulate. So you got to taper off of it. So in a similar sense, when kinfolk are enveloped in unhealthy relationship expectations and an unhealthy culture of unhealthy relationships, toxicity, to just introduce the prospect of marriage and the components of, or the process of that, that can be like going cold turkey, that a shock to the body, particularly because it can be so susceptible to being, um, or being perceived as suspect and or whatever else. So, and those concerns are legitimate. However, it's just starting the day and I'm starting to close my eyes already. That's definitely means wrap up. Um, so anyways, just recognizing that and, sharing the healthy ways first by how we are. And I ain't perfect, know that for certain. So that puts a hold up on how much we expect or promote even the healthy things that we know are healthy. It's we do it best by just doing it ourselves and let that speak for itself. And then people approach and ask questions and study and proceed accordingly. So, in the meanwhile, as we work towards doing ourselves and being in relationship with others, it's just a matter of sharing humbly, gently, patiently, um, with those who are increasingly receptive. So that being said, let's go out into the world and share. Let's go out into the world and share. There's a song there somewhere. We just rhymed with a light care. Everybody everywhere. That's the shuttle to take us somewhere. Everybody, let's share. All thanks and praise to the Most High, Elohim, blessed love and peace, and Rastafari.